Hello everyone, welcome back to my workshop. Today I'm going to turn a piece of Burr oak and we're going to make a wide rim semi-natural edge platter. It's going to be a bit deeper than normal, it's a bit thicker than I'd like, but it will look stunning. The piece of oak, Burr oak, is about 20 inches. Bought this some time ago and hopefully it's dry enough now to turn. I've got the centre point marked and I'm going to use the Evolution chuck with some flat plates on as a face plate. Mark that up, screw that down, mount it on the Hegner lathe, turn the back and then reverse it by using a glue chuck method, which is the method I prefer to use. So I've got a scrap piece of wood on a faceplate ready to go for when the time's right, but for now I'm going to mount that Evolution chuck onto the piece of wood and start the turning. Hi guys, as you can see I've mounted the Burr oak onto the lathe using that Evolution chuck. What I've also done is to give me some sort of rough guide is put a pen line around so you can see where I'm going to have the little bit of natural edging on it, on the edge of the rim. So I've gone all the way around. It's only a rough guide, just held a pen, let the wood circle, held a pen on the tool rest, let the wood circle like that, and it just gives me a line to go to roughly. I'm going to come in first of all and try and achieve that line before I start doing anything else, just to help balance the piece up, because as you can see it will be unbalanced. So I've turned that down now to where I want it to be. I haven't come quite to the pen line that I put on, but I quite like the natural edging that's coming apparent. So all these bits are going to be really nice on the edge of the rim of the bowl. So I'm going to leave them and leave it as it is. Bearing in mind that this is the actual bottom of the platter bowl, and all the bits like this, they're all going to be included in the edge of that rim when we're finished. So the next job's going to be true the base up, and then I'm going to turn the outside or the base of this piece and make sure I've got a nice flat bottom or slightly concave bottom ready to accept the glue chuck later on. So that eventually will be glued onto there with a hot melt glue gun, and then I'll be able to reverse it to turn the front or top of the piece. So next job, as I say, true it up and then start turning the shape. So as you can see, I'm turning the back or the bottom of the piece. I've turned away where I want the rim to be, leading to the bowl of the vessel. Now what I've noticed in turning, or whilst turning, is that the top is quite a lot more out of true than I first thought. So you can see the kind of thickness there is a lot different to the thickness up here. So before I go any further in truing this side up, I'm going to true the top up. That will allow me to work this side parallel with what will be the top. And to do that, I'm going to leave it as it is on the lathe, move the freestanding tool rest so that it's behind the lathe, go in from the edge and just true it up as far as I can reach. Hopefully that will be just past the diameter of the rim that I want. after having trued up the front of it, I've removed the freestanding tool rest and I've started truing up what will be the back of the piece. You can see I've already done one pass and I've got a lip here. I've just started the next pass and I'm going to carry on with that now. I've moved the tool rest a bit further because I'm actually going to take this another inch maybe so that it is a really wide rim on this. So all I'm going to do now is, using these steps that I've created, turn away so that I've got another inch to add to the width of the diameter of the rim. So the next job is to work on the slope of the bowl going down to the base. The base is going to be relatively flat because this is a platter and not a bowl, so it's going to have a wider base on it than a bowl would. So I want to keep this flat, but I want this to roll into the rim. You can really start to see the beauty of this timber, can't you, as we're getting there. Little line there, tool mark there, from where I cut this slope here. I shall remove that in final sanding. The next job is, you can see all the saw lines on there, is to true up the actual base, ready for hot gluing onto the glue chuck. So that's the next job. So I've turned the base now, and I've turned it to a slight concave towards the centre. That'll help it sit right on a table or sideboard in a customer's house. What I need to do now is mark some circles on it, roughly the diameter of the piece of wood that I'm going to use as the glue chuck. And that is simply a case of putting your pencil there, unlocking it, and allowing the wood to spin. That's too small. That's a bit bigger. That might be the one. I'll do an extra one. Now, what I should do now is take it off the lathe, take the evolution chuck off of this and sit this face down on the bed of the lathe. I shall marry the scrap piece of wood that's fitted to the faceplate and line it up so that it is near as damn it is perfect with one of these circles, pencil mark circles. And then I shall, where the two join, I shall put a circle of hot melt glue. I'll show you that next. So I've taken the piece off the lathe now. I've removed the evolution chuck from the front, put it face down on the bed of the lathe. I've lined up the scrap piece of wood mounted on the faceplate to the circles that I drew on the back of the bowl a moment ago. I'm using the evolution chuck now as a kind of like a paperweight to hold it in place. And what I'm going to do is run some standard hot melt glue around it where they join. And I'll go all the way around, making sure there's no gaps. Being careful not to move the glue chuck. The beauty of doing it this way, of course, is you've got no foot or recess on the bottom, and I don't like to see that on something that's got a natural edge or as beautiful as these Burr oaks. So I do like to do this method when I'm using it. Okay, so that should be enough. Let's pop that down out of the way. What you got to do now is give that 20 minutes or so, maybe half an hour, depending on the temperature in your workshop, just to cool down and harden off. So, back at it. I've had a cup of coffee and half a packet of biscuits. Now I'm a happy boy. I can come back and see how we're getting on. The glue is set. It's nice and solid. So, there's the test. Pick it up. It's not falling off. I can feel it's very firm on there, so I'm happy with that. Let's get it back on the lathe. There we go, back on the lathe. Quick wobble check. No movement. So I'm happy that I can turn this now. Now, it's at this stage I should point out we're now going to be turning on a glue joint. So there are key points that you need. Sharp tool, shallow cuts, and a steady hand. If you plough into this, you're going to end up with a new window in your workshop. So you want to take your time. Cut it nicely with the shallow cuts, and you will get there. It's so much worth it because you don't get those recesses or chuck hold marks on the back of the piece. Right, so here we go. I've got it mounted back up. I've got my tool rest in the position I want it in. I've drawn a pencil line around the center. That gives me an idea where the wall is at the back, so I don't want to come beyond that. So I'm going to dig in from there to the center. That's my limit. Okay, so making sure that the variable speed is turned down low, making sure that everything can turn nicely without catching on anything. Let's fire the lathe up and start hollowing this vessel out. Remember guys, you're on glue, so you don't want it too fast because it will shake off the lathe. As fast as you feel comfortable with. I've given the piece a first sand with 120 grit sandpaper on a mandrel, on a drill, power sanding. And what I've got to do now, before I do finish sanding, I want to get rid of any of the bark that's left on the natural edge. Now, we've got to be a bit careful here because we could damage the natural edge, and I really don't want to do that. So I'm going to take a little chisel and just spend some time eking out the bark, because it's still stuck quite solid in some places. Just taking bits and pieces away until I get to bare wood on the natural edge. It's worth taking a bit of time when you're doing this. Just do it slowly, because you don't want to ruin what you've planned to save. So at this point in the process, it would be a shame to lose or break something, wouldn't it? So I'm going to take a bit of time and I'm going to clean all this off, and then I'll come back to you. Right, I've gently teased the bark out with the flat chisel, and then what I've done, just to get rid of any of the loose and to blunten some of the sharp edges, I've gone across it with a wire brush on a drill. And that will, as I say, get rid of any loose particles, and also the burrs that are on it, it'll blunten them off so that they're not sharp when somebody goes to pick up the bowl. What I'm going to do now is get the blowtorch out and slightly scorch the natural edging to highlight them. Now I'm not going to burn these heavily, just going to scorch it so it goes a bit black, just to highlight those areas. Just on the edge. I'm going to try not to get too much on the face, although it could be sanded off afterwards. It's always best when you're doing this to have a bit of water or a fire extinguisher in the workshop ready, just in case the unthinkable happens. Just rotate it a bit to the next bit. I've now power sanded to 240 grit. Once I've done that, I've got another piece of 240 grit sandpaper, and I've gone across with the grain just in case there's any sanding marks left in it from the drill pad. I've also blown it off with a bit of air just to get rid of any particles, and I'm now going to oil it. The oil I'm using is from the Osmo range, and it's satin clear, but I've gone for the external version of it. It's got UV protection, and I like the idea of that because a lot of these pieces that I make actually end up hanging on walls, and with that UV protection it stops the sun from bleaching the colours in the piece. They do look fantastic with this oil as well, as you'll see. So, bit on a cloth, and away we go. Just going to work it into the grain. And you should start to see the colours popping through. Allowing it to soak what it wants to into the wood. Working it into all the little dimples and holes that are there. Less is definitely more when using this oil. So strike with the cloth you're using, get off as much as you can of the excess, and then we'll go to a different rag to go right over the piece. So clean rag. just taking the excess off. Right, so once you've got the excess off, we'll move to a mop on a drill just to give it a bit of a burnish and get rid of any true excess that's left. Okay, so I got the mop on the drill. It's an old mop. Don't be disheartened by the colour of it. It's going to do the job splendidly. So I'm going to fire up the lathe on the slow speed and let the mop go across the face just to give it a bit of heat so it burnishes it slightly and to get rid of any undue excess. There we go, that's pretty much it. Obviously it's still on the glue chuck at the back, so what I've got to do now is give this overnight to dry. Once that's dry, I'll take it off of the lathe, lay it on a towel or something soft on the bed of the lathe, remove the glue chuck just with a normal flat chisel and a mallet, clean the surface up, give it a light sand where the glue chuck was, and oil the back in the similar version as I've done the front. And that'll be it. I think it looks stunning. Let me know what you think in the comments. Thanks for watching. Take care out there. And remember, kindness costs nothing. Cheers.